Hi, Carrington. How are you today?
I am well. How are you, Dr. Music?
Yeah, I wish I was the actual doctor. I'm like one of the assistant nurses, I guess, if you would say, or something. We have a website, Doctor Music, and I get to be one of the associates that gets to talk to so many great musicians. So
That's
yes,
great. Well, I think of you as just Dr. Music. So,
thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I never thought I would have the doctor title in front of my name. I went to music school, but I didn't never go for a doctorate, so I get to be Doctor
right,
Music this afternoon. It's my sincere privilege and excitement to welcome anybody who will be watching in the future to watch our future webcast. Carrington MacDuffie. Carrington MacDuffie has done so much. I was just chatting with her a little bit ago and just saying what a multidimensional person. The bucket list of things that she's done in music and outside of music. I mean, it's not just about the music. You know, we all love music, and I'm a 24/7 music person too. But boy, there's so many other things to try to, small airplane riding, water, all the different things. I mean, there is so much to talk about,
yeah.
in your life. All the different things that you've done to this point so far. So we'll talk about the music, of course, but we're going to have to weave in a little bit of stuff about you in your spare time. If there's spare time, what is that you do? You're certainly not letting the grass grow, too long.
Right. No.
So um, I want to just start kind of at the beginning. It's like I like to do when I talk to people, just kind of, how did it start? I read a little bit. I want to talk about a couple common musicians that we grew up listening to, through our families, because our families really do have an impact on what we do with our music life, right? The things that we hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just maybe tell me how it all started for you, how you got the music bug to say, I want to do this for more than just singing around the house. I want to make this a career.
It was a little later than I thought of it as a career. I think not until I was maybe 20,
Okay.
was when I started thinking of it that way. And I certainly didn't know what I was getting myself into. So I thought about it. And at first I thought I need to get an education. And so I took some more. I mean, I had a background in singing in choruses and playing instruments. I played the French horn in a county band, and I played the cornet, and I sang all the time. I mean, I was singing as a child and listening to music all the time. But when I started thinking about it in terms of a career, that's when I thought, well, I need to take more courses, and I did music theory and all that. But I found myself surrounded by people who were classical musicians who'd been trained that way since the age of 5. And
Yeah.
I knew that, I could do, I knew that I was meant to be, I'd been writing songs since I was maybe 13. So I knew that, and I had did it by teaching myself to play the piano, very, very rudimentary playing, but I never took any lessons. And I realized that in that when I was right around the age of 20, that I wasn't really designed to train that way, and that I needed to do it by ear, and I really need to do things hands-on. I'm always a student of life, and I'm actually taking a seminar right now on global economics with
Wow.
people all over the world,
Yeah.
which is absolutely fascinating because I'm a Bitcoiner. Um, but at that time, I realized, no, this just really needs to be hands-on for me. And then so I wound up moving to LA and just figuring out how Hollywood works and all that. So that was the start of trying to take it seriously. I mean, I always took it seriously as in terms of like my soul and my
Sure.
passion, and
Sure.
the thing that I love the most. But I guess that's the point at which I thought, this needs to be applied to my life on a different level.
Right.
And I've been trying to do that ever since.
That's great. And so how was it when you made that transition from like, okay, serious for my soul and serious for my passion of music, but then to kind of learn the inner workings of the industry? It's a tricky industry, and it's changed so much over the years because of just technology, you know, and to get there and say, wait,
Yeah.
an album, I can't make an album and have it make
Yeah.
a lot of money or support me, at least support me, my living, I have to play songs on the internet, so I mean, how did that whole transition in your brain happen when you got there?
Well, at the time that transition was happening, I was also developing a career as a voice actor. because I knew that it was part of my, well, I'm going to say the word destiny. Part of my destiny was to make a living with my voice. And so I was pursuing that at the time, developing my skills in character voice and various dialects, doing long form narration, a lot of audiobooks, some video games, some commercial work, but primarily audiobooks because they involve really the biggest skill set, the widest range of uh, skills, because you have to do all kinds of dialects and characters even within one scene, and you have to be able to do storytelling and all that stuff. So I was working on that at the time, and so my focus wasn't so, and I tend not to focus on how things are going wrong, because I know a lot of musicians really felt very strongly at the time that the MP3 came along and all that music was going way wrong. But there's always just a different way to approach something. And maybe it does mean disruption of the way that things are going. Maybe you do have to create some kind of disruption. So I just kept producing, but I wasn't releasing at that time. And that's instead, I was doing a lot of spoken word performance because I'm also a poet. I've worked as a literary editor for, like literary magazine. And so I was doing a lot of writing, poetry writing, spoken word performance. I was doing a lot of underground production in a project studio in Seattle, and I was developing my career as a voice actor. So I didn't put a whole lot of attention into how the business was changing because, boy, talk about something out of my control.
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely out of my control. So how can you be creative in the face of something out of your control? That, I guess, is how I approach that.
I think that's a great philosophy on that because it stifles creativity, right? If you get lost and trapped, and I think a lot of people, I think unfortunately a lot of people do get trapped in that because it's a fight or flight mentality that can happen, not intentionally, but it can really happen, a fight or flight mentality that is not necessary if you could find the silver lining in some other career. I mean, you've done so many things. If one thing started to be a little quiet for you, you'd have 10 other things to do. And I feel like sometimes people who, you know, everyone has to do something different in life, but like sometimes someone who might work 40 or 50 years in that one job and they do the same thing every day, I respect that because they're earning a living, they're paying for their family. But I always want to encourage them to say, there are so many other things you can do with this gift you've been given of life. And there's so much to do. So that's what you're doing though. I mean, you just bounce from, and it's not bouncing it. It's not, I don't mean that you just can go from one thing to another. It's so inspiring.
Well, thank you. And if I can do anything to be able to inspire, that's the top. That's like the top accomplishment in my book. And it's true, I don't really bounce. I mean, I think that the idea of multitasking, that's really an illusion. You don't really ever multitask.
Right, right.
Ultimately, you can really only do one thing at a time. But if you stay centered and then you conduct these things from your center, I don't know. I guess, but I also think that we're all structured differently. Our minds are structured differently. And the reason, for instance, that I can do a scene in an audiobook where I might play several different characters of different ages and both male and female and in different dialects. And they all are, and I can read through the scene and play all those parts. There's some kind of multi thing in my head, right? And so, but not everybody is suited to do that. Some people, require like that total focus, and that's great too. There are musicians way more accomplished than I am because, and I'm talking about musician as far as like I play an electric ukulele, right? And again, I taught myself to play that same as I taught myself to play the piano. So it's very rudimentary. Now, someone who just really focuses on their instrument, they're going to be 1,000 times better musician on their actual instrument than I am. Really, my instrument is my voice. And so I do feel I have as much skill as anybody, or at least certainly as much soul. But yeah, there's a real advantage to total focus too. I guess it's following how you are naturally built.
I guess that, as me, it's very true. Everyone has to follow their path of how their chemical and physical and mental makeup of what it is that they should follow in life. And doing many things is not for everyone, because like you said, maybe it's like a doctor or a scientist needs to focus on that one thing to break
Yeah,
to break a code on something find a cure for something, or
yeah,
and they need that.
yeah.
They
Because
can't
if you
be
want to, yeah, to break through, I mean, I think of Einstein working in the patent office, and he was doing a job that was very mundane so that his mind could be free to do the kind of exploration it needed to do in a really, really probably hyper-focused way.
right. So that's kind of like the middle ground. The middle ground is someone does take a job that's very basic to, just a very, you work your hours and you do it. But meantime, the mind is always working. So that's kind of the middle ground. Someone that you never would expect, they're 20 years and all of a sudden they've got this amazing patent on something that could help us in society in so many ways. That's an interesting thing how the mind, different people. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so when you went out to LA and everything, you were doing the voiceover and you were doing the music. Let's go back just a step for a moment. And you said you had kind of done you played French horn, you played cornet.
Mm.
Were you in school bands and everything? Were you formalized doing that?
Very young I was, third, fourth, fifth grade, I was doing that. Then my parents moved me into a lot of different schools, mostly private schools. And at that time, they moved me to a school that was very academically challenging, and that actually had a really crappy music program. And so what happened at that time is I lost touch with the brass instruments that I was playing,
Right.
and that's the time that I started creating my own music, because I was no longer in a structured situation musically that offered me anything really fulfilling. So I started doing it myself.
That's great. If it wasn't going to be supplied by the school system, if the school system wasn't coming together, then you had to do it on your own. And
That's right. And the school system, don't get me started. So yeah, I'm very in favor of, find your path. Don't rely on the school to give it to you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were writing, you said you started writing at the age of 13, I believe you said. And what what was coming first, or even today in your writing, what comes first for you? Is it really the lyrics or the melody or a combination of both? What do you enjoy writing most first? What gets you started? Do you hear that melody or do you think of a line?
It tends to just come at once. It's usually not a line. Very occasionally it's a lyric line, but it's pretty rare that the lyric line comes without a melody or a sound, a vocal emanation. I'm working on something now. A lot of times it just comes out of the blue, right? I mean, I think musicians or writers, we channel music.
Hmm.
I don't know where it comes from. I didn't come up with it. That's how I feel about it. I didn't really come up with it, but I might be sitting there and maybe there's something on my mind that I want to get at, but maybe there's nothing on my mind that I'm aware of at all. And I just start strumming and something pops out of my mouth. And when I was younger and a lot more self-critical, I would have probably dismissed half the ideas that I have now, thinking, oh, that's not going to go anywhere. But in my age and wisdom, I've learned not to discount things that pop out like that, because they're usually the real deal. When you try it really hard to create something and craft it, that's usually not the real deal. The crafting comes after the inspiration. So usually something just pops out and it's a line, and or even a phrase. It's got a slight melody to it, and maybe I'm strumming, because I'm mostly writing on that electric little mini guitar these days. And then I just try to let it evolve from there, and I don't push it too hard. If I don't have a good idea, I set it aside. I let it come. And then there's a certain point, you get to a certain point in this. I'm very, very interested in song structure. You know, that's crucial. A lot of writers, I think, don't, I feel like I don't hear that in a lot of songwriting, but song structure.
Sure.
So I'll work that a little harder once a certain structure has started to evolve, and I'll know, okay, it's got to change here. It's got to change up. Where does it want to go? Where does it want to go? And then I just listen. I don't try to do something. I just listen for where it wants to go, and then I sing that. And if I don't know what chord it is, I'll find it. I'll look for the chord because I can hear it in my mind, and then I have to find it on the instrument. That's kind of how that process works.
It's so neat. Amateur songwriter here, amateur, but
Right.
but I just love that the thoughts that you just shared about that. And I think song structure is very important. I love writing a bridge. I just love writing the bridge because then it's like, oh, it's gonna go somewhere else with the chords.
Yes.
You never know where it's gonna go. Like you said, you just listen for it. You don't sit there and go, oh well, it's 4 notes away, so it should. It's just like,
Right. It needs to change. The bridge is where it goes somewhere you wasn't gonna repeat. You don't see it coming.
I love it. It's something completely different. You're going verse, chorus, maybe a verse 3 in a chorus, and then you're all of a sudden that bridge.
Yeah.
And then do you have to go back to verse 4? Not necessarily. Maybe go back to a refrain. You do a refrain and it ends. I love song structure. Yeah.
Yes, me too. It would seem like it would be predictable because it's so simple and it's been done over and over and over and over and over, but it's still mysterious.
Yeah. And I think because there's so much music out there, I think I sometimes worry that I would accidentally sound like somebody else. So I really go out of my way with my chords. I really change up my chords. I don't think, too strict on the chords for the verses and the 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, all that stuff. I really tried, and someone tried to follow along with me one time in a coffee house or something. I said, "Boy, your chords are kind of different. I like them, but they're different." I was like, "Oh, is that a good thing or a bad thing?"
But it can go either way.
Right.
If you try too hard and then you're just being arcane, and then who cares?
Absolutely. Let's talk about some of the musical influences that, one of the ones I wanted to pull out here is Herb Alpert. You mentioned Herb Alpert, in some of your press about Herb Alpert. And boy, I grew up with those records. On the big turntable cabinet thing and throwing those on, I was maybe 8 years old. And boy.
Yeah, my dad played Herb Alpert. That a lot of my influence as a tiny little thing comes down to what my dad was spinning.
Yep.
So, and he had a wide range of taste he didn't listen to country, but pretty much everything else, unless you can, well, no, Neil Diamond really, there's a tiny bit of country influence, but he's really a classic pop songwriter. But he listened to Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass,
yes.
South of the Border, and there was another record he had, and I actually don't know who the artist was. I just remember the cover, and it was called That Happy Feeling. I don't think that was Herb Alpert, but it was that same incredibly hooky, upbeat, super fun. I could barely walk, but I just remember cutting up the rug, I think he was playing that when I was crawling.
And see, I think I'm kind of the same place. I remember those records around the house constantly. They had two or three or 4 or 5 of them. And, other ones, Ray Conniff and the Conniff Singers and some of those other really old school, Andy Williams, some of the older school artists. So people look at me like, well, how do you like this? Well, that's what my parents played. That's what I heard.
Right.
Yeah. And it's a sentimental and also a musical appreciation. It's both.
Totally.
Both.
Yeah.
What about, what other artists, you mentioned a couple of them that, what other artists do you like? When you hear something, you say, I love what they do with their song, or I love their voice. Other ones that you've tried to influence especially as you were evolving from being a 13-year-old to going out to the West Coast like that.
What was I listening to at that time? I was exposed to country music for the first time. I didn't even know that it was country music. I just knew that it was really, really catchy. I was in a dormitory because I went to boarding school.
Okay.
And so there were girls on my hall who were playing old time, like Beach Boys. That was the first time I got exposed to Beach Boys and country music. They were playing, I want to say like Charlie Daniels.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. And I had never heard that. I had no idea,
and that's country.
What that.
Yeah.
Yeah, real country. So I didn't really start trying to imitate that, but I think that it influenced me, because anytime you hear something new, and I didn't have any of those records, you know, I didn't have any money to buy music really, um, but I heard it. I heard what people around me were playing. I didn't hear a lot of radio at that time, because the way boarding school was, I just didn't have a radio at that time anyway. So, but I heard what albums other people were listening to, and there was a lot of rootsy stuff during those years. And then it was starting to get into, so I was influenced by rootsy. I remember Joan arbitrating though
Oh,
too.
yeah. Sleight of
Uh,
hand. Sleight of hand.
and she influenced me a lot, because I hadn't heard a single female, artistic sort of single female. This was like not Linda Ronstadt or Carole King, even though they were great, especially Carole King. My God, what a writer! Her and
Yeah.
Jerry Goffin and
Oh my goodness.
Mike Nesmith and all those people. That
Mhm.
amazing stuff. In fact, I like to cover that early stuff. But Joan arbitrating was a really different sound for a girl to listen to, and so that broke me out of that more rootsy thing. And also I was listening to more rock then. I was starting to listen to the Clash, you
Mm.
know, and the punk that was happening. And then that was morphing into all the Cars and all that stuff, which I love. I still love. The Cars are one of
If,
my
if
favorite
you look
bands.
in the background there on my screen, I don't know if you can see my cars way back there in
Oh,
the upper corner,
yes,
right above my head there.
yes,
That is my number one favorite band. I got to tell you, I
yeah.
honestly,
All right.
it's the
We
only
have a
band
similar
yeah, that's so cool. I mean,
we have similar taste.
I never worried about sitting in the front row for a concert except for them. I was only a teenager too. You know, it was like '87 when they put out the album After Hartford City, their last big album before they took a long break, and Door to Door. And yeah, and I remember trying to talk my parents and they helped me get front row seats for that concert. Like front row seats, they're gonna be a fortune. And when I look at that receipt, pennies on the dollar compared to what they would charge for something like that today. But I was right up
Oh,
there
yeah.
with them, and yeah, so I could that music sensibility of that band and all the bands you mentioned. It's very from the Clash to the Cars, cool, you know, to
Oh,
the
yeah.
Elvis.
Yeah, the Cars were so, what I love about them was they were so, the discipline of their songwriting and the catchiness of it, together with the drive. There was this incredible combination of restraint and forward drive
Yeah,
that every time I hear them, I just want to, you know, I can play a song of theirs over and over just for the energy of it. That restraint and drive combination just kills me.
that is
Yeah,
so neat that you say all this. I mean, honestly, I'm not a passive fan. I'm just is my favorite band. It happens to be, and that's
that's
just the end of all.
funny.
Like I said,
That's
you know, it
great.
happens to be my favorite of all. And I listen to everything. You know, I like everything you mentioned. I was like, yeah, this is really neat, Carrington. You know, this is what you're coming from many different angles of music, and that's what makes you your own person because you can take a little bit of everything and make it your own, and you know, come up with your own formula.
You know, someone asked my sister, one of my sisters sings jazz, and someone asked her once who her influences were, and she said really she was influenced by everything that she heard influenced her in one way or another. And I think that's a really good answer to the influence question, because I'm also influenced by what I don't like. I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that. That's boring, or that's repetitive, or that's soulless.
Yeah,
You know, that's lame. You know,
right, right.
so I'm influenced that way as well, I suppose. But my dad played also a lot of classical music when I was a child, and Beethoven's Ninth just thrilled me when I was very little. That was a huge influence on me. Not that I'm an orchestral writer at all, but the inspiration factor of that.
Yeah.
Phew. Schiller's Ode to Joy, that's just, whew, it'll give you shivers down your back.
Well, and when you think about the fact that he was mostly deaf at that point when he was writing the
Yeah,
night,
that guy he
yeah,
knew what he was doing.
yeah, it was
I
all up
wouldn't have
here.
wanted to live with him, but he knew what he was doing, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
So that's it's just amazing. Yeah, there is a whole that's a whole world the classical music. That's what I studied a little bit too. I'm a rock and roller, but that was
Mm.
my
Yeah,
be a
right.
music
Same here.
going.
Well, there's so much to learn from classical music about dynamics,
Yeah,
that you don't hear in pop music that much, with the exception of certain writers and producers who use that more. And because of the radio, where everything has to be compressed and come at you, at a similar level, um, there isn't as much room for dynamics.
right.
But I think that's a wonderful part of music. And, classical music is, if you want to learn about dynamics, that's where to go to
Absolutely.
listen.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Let's talk a little bit about your new music. It's a good year for you here. We're got music happening. We're trying to little by little dip our toes back into the world again. All of us, trying to just find a safe place, a safe haven to get back to live performances at some point down the road, late in the year, early next year. We don't know, right? But you're working on music, and you have something coming out this spring, summer, approximately, right? A new album.
Yes, I mean, I'm producing and releasing all the time. I just don't, regardless of what the world is
Right,
doing.
right.
So, so I have a Valentine's Day, a song dropping for, and video dropping for Valentine's Day weekend, and that is the title track of the album that's scheduled for. I'm working the schedule now. We'll see. It's probably going to be early June, and that's called Sweet Little Mystery. So the title track drops in just a couple weeks. And then we have singles dropping. When I say we, I work with a team in the UK. I have a team in the UK and also in the US. So that will be an 8-song EP, or LP rather. And I was thinking late May. I may push it to early June. There's a lot of stuff happening, and um, in my world and in the world at large.
Yeah.
So we'll see about that. But I've already recorded most of those tracks are recorded. I've got videos I'm working on for some of them. And some of the singles will be released after the album drops. Certainly in the UK, we'll be releasing singles through the summer. So I'm very excited about that.
That's
Always excited about a new record.
Yeah, and it's so exciting to see then how people react to it. Like all the time you spend on it to start to get the feedback and to start to see it in the media outlets and to start to hear about it. That's got to be so rewarding as an artist to like, okay, this has been my project, my baby, if you will, this whole time, and now I get to release it to the world and see what they're gonna say and inspire, hopefully, I'm as you have a way of doing with all these things you're doing to inspire people through your words and through your music, you know?
Yeah, that's what, you hope for. And absolutely that step of releasing it and promoting it is an important part and a very gratifying part. Although a lot of times, I mean, because I'm producing all the time, even when I'm on tour, I record while I'm on tour as much as I can. I have a band in Glasgow, and when I was on tour with them, I was on tour for a couple months. Well, it's over a year ago. Last February, I was in Glasgow recording and shooting video. So I'm continuing to write and produce even while I'm on tour. But because of that, and because of the fact of needing to be performing as well as writing and producing, a lot of times the part of making contact in the world kind of goes by me.
Yeah.
I mean, these kind of conversations, I love this,
Uh-huh.
because we're generating energy with a meeting of the minds, and I just love that. But the promotion piece, and I have a great teams in both countries. I love working with them, but it kind of tends to go by me. And what other people think, I got to be honest, I kind of don't really care. I don't care. Okay. I don't, I don't care. I love you, but I do not care. I'm going to do what I do. And I don't think you should care what I think either. You should just do your thing. And, if we can inspire each other, that's really great. But I've been criticized and reviewed so much, especially in music, but in voice acting, because of I've narrated over 250 audiobooks. I've won awards, and I've also gotten slammed in reviews for stuff I've gotten awards for stuff that I thought was mediocre, and then I've gotten slammed for what I felt was my most subtle and crafted work. So, you know, I don't really care, but it's an important part of the process. And so I respect it for that reason, and I certainly engage in it. And when I can have an interaction like this, where we're having a real exchange and we're excited, yeah, love that.
I love, this is fantastic. I love being able to, and on my side, I love being able to learn from so many great musicians in here, and I like to help them promote. You know, I get inspired by them, and I love to help people like yourself promote your music, get it out there. You know, I just,
Yeah,
as we talk, I'm like, there's so much here, there's so much music that you've got to give, and so much, you know. So I love that one-on-one exchange too, like that you can't get from just hearing the record sometimes, or from watching an interview like
yeah,
me,
yeah.
actually talking here firsthand from somebody, how they feel. Um, and going back to what you just said about that, and that's really a good place to be with your philosophy on that, because many musicians can get caught in that mode of, you know, they have all these great reviews, and all of a sudden someone just, you know, dings them for a moment with something, and it gets in their head.
Mhm.
I mean, I know there was a jazz artist that stayed away from, I'm in Chicago. So there was a jazz artist that stayed away from Chicago for about 20 years because of one
Oh,
review, and wouldn't come back and perform.
oh,
And then
right,
finally, after
right.
the 20 years, worked through it. But it was over one review. And I thought, you know, I
Yeah,
understand, it feels horrible to get that kind of negative publicity after you work so hard, but it's better to be able to turn a deaf ear to it and not let it get to you. Not, it doesn't matter. You're always going to find someone that's counterproductive with their comments. Even all the armchair commentators on Facebook and Instagram and here and there, the armchair, you know, you're always going to get someone that says, I don't like this, or I don't, you know. So you just got to be able to extra noise in the, you know, the background.
yeah, yeah. Water on a duck's back. I mean, I think everyone's entitled to their opinion, and a lot of times people have one. I sometimes don't have any opinion personally, but I think the key to it is what they say, don't take anything personally.
Yeah.
Just don't take it personally. Actually, nothing is really about you.
Yeah.
It actually isn't about you. It's about whoever's saying the thing that they're saying, and all power to them for feeling the way that they feel. It's none of your business.
Right.
I just kind of feel like reviews and reactions and responses are part of the exchange overall, and certainly reviews and awards and all that are part of the structure of the business. They're necessary to the structure of the business,
Yeah.
but it's none of my business. It's not my problem. You know, I just see it as not my problem. It's my job to create the music and put it out there. And then my job stops there.
And you are probably so much more healthy for that philosophy. Like, you probably sleep better at night. You walk through the world, you experience the world in a better way because you're not hung up on any of that, and you just, you know, it's part of the game and part of what happens in life and part of how people are, what
Yeah.
makes us all individuals, but you don't get lost in it. I love that.
Yeah. And I think it helps also that I'm an introvert. And so, which isn't to say that I'm shy exactly, but as I understand the way introvert and extrovert works, an introvert tends to draw meaning from within. An extrovert draws meaning from without. So if you're an extrovert, you might have a harder time ignoring those reviews. But for me, my world is really complete. You know, the world that I create is very complete. So that helps too.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the, you know, just this custom ukulele you brought up? It's a custom ukulele. You kind of told them how you wanted it, and maybe talk about how that came about. Were you playing guitar a lot
Okay.
first, and then kind of the ukulele kind of?
No, no, not at all. Actually, no. I really I don't play the guitar. I had been writing on a keyboard for so long and I needed to change things up. I had moved to Austin, and there are just so many great musicians in Austin, Texas. And I knew that if I wanted to really enjoy my band, I needed to be able to not be on a keyboard. I had stopped playing a keyboard live because it was always in the way.
Mhm.
And then I started doing all the solo spoken word performance. And then I moved, like I said, I moved to Austin, and I knew I wanted to be able to play with my band. And
Right.
so that wasn't going to be a keyboard, and I wasn't any good at that anyway. So I needed something that would be a very friendly, user-friendly instrument, which the ukulele is, which accounts, I think, for its tremendous popularity currently. But I also am completely fascinated by electricity, and I knew I wanted to play electric. So I have a bunch of ukuleles. None of them looks like a normal ukulele, and I'm going to get you this electric one because it's such a great looking little instrument. So I had this custom made because I knew I wanted an electric. So it's like a mini
Wow,
Strat,
that is so
and I
cool.
had it. Yeah, isn't that gorgeous? And I had this custom made in South Africa to my specs. So this is what I primarily play. I mean, I have other ones. I have an acoustic one that's also kind of interesting because it's made of plastic. It's not it's not like a classic koa wood, beautiful. It's plastic. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's big. It's bigger than a ukulele. The strap. So I have some kind of unusual instruments that I can turn to, but this is my baby. This
That is
one.
so cool. I love that. I absolutely love that. I was looking when you were
Yeah, me
holding it
too.
up, I was looking to see if there was an Elliot Easton Cars whammy bar on there at all. You know how, yeah, I
No,
mean, how
I
to,
considered, I considered a whammy bar, but the thing is, if you put a whammy bar on, you're going to be tuning all the time, and
right.
it just makes tuning kind of
Yeah.
crazy
Oh, I would
because you're
imagine, 'cause you're
messing with
pulling those
the
strings.
bridge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're the bridge too.
Right. Oh,
You're
right.
bending.
Right.
So, and there's not a lot of space on this thing. So, as it
Yeah.
is, uh, what I'm dealing with here,
Right.
it's pretty tight to where I'm strumming. So to actually add a whammy bar,
Yeah.
I did consider it, but, and it may still happen. That could still happen. We'll see
That could be for
if
those
I
cars
find the
covers.
right maker.
Yeah. Right.
This is made by Mark Fanner in Cape Town
That's so
to
neat.
my
And
specifications.
I'm sure that once that started, when you started playing ukulele with the band, like that electric ukulele, then you really felt like, okay, now it's all, now I got that keyboard out of the way and I'm here and I'm right in the middle of
Yeah.
it all.
Yeah, I could drop in, and I make sure that I mean, the musicians I play with, I adore them all. They're all so good. They're just playing really, really, really good. And I love a keyboard in the band, though. That's a really important piece
Right.
because there's a range of sound you can get on keys that you can't get on anything else. And my guy in Glasgow, he's one of those guys that plays two keyboards, so he can cover a lot of different kinds of parts, and that really thickens the sound you can get, and it also relieves the pressure on me. I have a really great guitarist there, so I don't have to play all the time. I love to play, but if I want to really focus on the vocal, and if what I've written, because sometimes I write stuff that's hard for me to play, you know
Yeah.
I could write it, but I may not be able to really play it very well.
It's fun at home in the
So
studio
that's
and then, yeah.
and let them, that's what they're for. That's what those guys are for. So then I can lay off of my instrument, and let my guitarist take over.
That's great.
I mean, he's playing all the time anyway, but I can take a break and not have to play all the time, which
Right.
is better for me and better for the audience and better for the band if
Right.
I'm not playing all the time.
Oh, come on. And you've
It's
traveled
true.
you traveled the world over doing your tours before we got to kind of a little break in life here. You were traveling the world with your shows, correct? You were in many, many countries. And
Oh, nowhere near as widely as I plan to. I was just kind of getting started on that, so I wouldn't say the world, but I was certainly all over the UK. I was all over England, Scotland, and Wales, and I had done a 2-month tour also, Germany, France, Belgium, Holland, and then the UK as well. I've done a little touring in the US, not as much as I have done in Europe and the UK. Played the Sundance Festival in Park City, Utah, and played shows in Austin, of course, San Antonio, and Fort Worth, up around Waco, and through in Texas. Um, when I was first getting into it, I was showcasing a lot in LA. That's a long time ago, but Venice Beach, LA, and all
right.
the showcase kind of gigs that you played in LA. I'm not sure what kind of showcases are available now, what with the changes that have happened in that city and then
Yeah,
lockdown too.
yeah, both.
But So I have a lot of plans, which I will not divulge at this time, for further world touring.
That's great.
It's
That's
in the
great.
making.
That's great. So people should be ready for a drop of a single in mid-February here coming up. We're at the end of January. I don't know where January went, Carrington. I don't know where it went.
Yeah, it's surreal. We're living in a kind of a surreal
Yeah.
wash of outside of time and space right now, I think.
Yeah.
But within time and space, yes, on the 12th, Friday the 12th, Sweet Little Mystery drops, along with a real dreamy, sweet video that I shot on a lake in Austin with this hot boat captain. It's going to be a really fun little video. This tough guy, I got this tough guy to play the part of the love interest in this very dreamy romantic video. And this guy is like so tough that it's really fun to have him in the video. He doesn't do anything tough, but knowing his background, it's just really great to have him in that video. And then there will be some behind the scenes footage in the single that will come after that, a song called Baby Played Me. That will probably come out later in April. We'll see, depends on the radio cycle. So, yep, and then the album Sweet Little Mystery, definitely with another, some of the songs have already dropped from that record. The Kiss I Didn't Get Last Night, which came out last fall or
And you have a video for
summer.
that one, right? There's a video on that one.
Yes, there's
I love the
two versions of
sunglasses.
that.
I love those sunglasses.
Yeah, aren't those cool?
They're so cool.
We had fun shooting that video. I'm wearing heart-shaped sunglasses,
I
and they're
love
very
those.
reflective, right? I
Yeah.
found those at a
Uh-huh.
like a thrift shop in the California desert for like $10, and I thought, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So those yeah, we flashed lights in them as much as we could when we were shooting that video. So that's a fun video. That's on my YouTube channel. And we also I produced an acoustic version of that song did really well on radio, especially UK radio, with my Glaswegian guitarist, John Gray. And that's a lovely version of that song. But the fully produced hip version of it will be on the record, along with a song called Precious Kisses that came out last summer, and then 6 new ones.
Very exciting. Very exciting. What
Yeah.
you mentioned your YouTube channel. What are some other outlets that you feel are where your fans find you the quickest, or where you really find yourself posting these things the most?
Right. Spotify is easy to find me on Spotify, and my website, which is just carringtonmacduffie.com, leads you to any of those outlets. But TikTok is my favorite thing right now. What I like about TikTok is there's this range of expression. Some of it's just like, yeah, did you want to see a dog eating a birthday cake or whatever? I mean, it's very whatever. But there's a freedom of, there's a freedom of expression happening on TikTok that's really, really fun. So I just started getting into that like a month or so ago. And I'm posting clips from videos and also just saying hi in the various situations that I'm in from one moment to the next. And so it's a good way to get glimpses of music and video, and where also I talk directly. So yeah, TikTok, and I think there are going to be some new platforms coming up. I'm keeping an eye out to see where else people are going to be searching for music. I feel like there's a big shift going to be happening in social media platforms. But right now I have a ton of videos up on my YouTube channel. That's a good way to find stuff.
Okay, so that's the starting point, and then they'll move on.
Yeah,
to
probably
things
my
like TikTok.
website.
Yeah.
If you go to my website, that'll connect you to everything.
Well, it's a very exciting time for your music, and because you've got all this, you've got the creative fuel just about to be released to the public, and like you said, a couple songs have already been sprinkled out there over time, so now they'll be put together with 6 new songs, and
Yeah.
how exciting is that? So,
Yeah. Thank you.
I thank you so much for your time today. Just so fun to talk with you, talk music, back and forth music about different things, with in there, but then all these other things that you do, just amazing. All the spoken word, that's a whole nother career, that people need to.
Yeah, that
Anything
is a
else you want to
whole
mention about that?
career.
How should people
And I
find
do
you?
like and I like small plane, piloting and Bitcoin and race car driving. I'm into a lot of things there's not time for everything. You know, there isn't enough time for all the fun things to do in the world. And target shooting, I love that. So, but right now we're going to focus on music. And yes, the new record is called Sweet Little Mystery, and I'm excited about it. And I hope that, well, like we said, I hope it inspires some people.
I have no doubt that it will. I have no doubt. Just if anybody who's listening to our interview will be inspired to get to that, because you have a way with your stories and inspiring people. It's a very sincere. You're very sincere about it all, and it's gonna bring people out to you. It's gonna be so exciting year.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, it is. I come from the heart. I definitely come from the heart. I'm brainy, but I like to come from the heart.
well, thank you, Carrington. So
A
Carrington,
total pleasure to talk to you.
thank you so much.
Dr. Music.
Yeah, for today, right? For today, I get to be the
Yes,
doctor.
you rock. You rock. Rock on.
Thank you, Carrington MacDuffie. Looking forward to the new record this year and new single coming up. And thank you so much for your time. Oh, I love that. I want to see that sometime in live. You got to come across the country and do some shows in the U.S. now. You got to do it. I want to see that.
Totally. Totally. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
You too.